Okay, so picture this scenario. You finally sit down to do the work, the deep work. The document is open, cursor's just
The
blinking.
classic blank page.
Yeah. And you write that first difficult paragraph, and you hit a moment of friction. Maybe you're looking for the right word, or the logic isn't quite clicking.
And then, almost without a conscious thought, your hand just moves.
It's a physical reflex. You reach for the phone. Just once, you tell yourself. You check your email, nothing there. You put it down, go back to the sentence.
But it's not over. 3 minutes later, you're reaching for it again.
Exactly. And that specific reflex is what we need to unpack. The standard advice, it treats that moment as a failure of discipline, a time management issue.
Right. We look at the clock and we think, oh, I just wasted 30 seconds, no big deal. We count the lost minutes. But the thing is, wasting time is actually the least of your worries there.
Yeah, because if you add it all up, it's what, 5 minutes in an 8-hour day? Who cares? But the real issue we're digging into today is that the problem isn't that distraction pauses the work.
It's so much more insidious than that.
It's that distraction is slowly rewiring how your brain relates to the work itself. It's not destruction, it's corruption.
Corruption is the perfect word for it. It really implies a slow decay of integrity. Because when you get into that cycle work, friction, distraction, validation, you aren't just procrastinating.
You're actively training your brain.
Yes, you are teaching it to associate effort with anxiety. You're training it to optimize for completely the wrong metrics. And maybe the most dangerous part is you're training it to seek that external validation instead of just doing the work.
So we're basically conditioning ourselves. We're building a brain that just can't tolerate the silence that you need for good work.
In a way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're building a brain that cannot sustain attention without a little treat. And this corruption happens in 4 specific ways that are very, very easy to miss. The first one is maybe the most common trap, especially for smart people. It's rationalization.
Oh, this is the one. Because we never just say, I'm bored, so I'm going to scroll.
No.
We have much better excuses. We tell ourselves we're being strategic.
Exactly. We disguise the dopamine seeking as productivity. You say, I need to check my email to stay responsive, or I need to check my social media stats to see what's resonating. Your brain just hands you this professional-sounding cover story.
I'm doing market research.
That's the one. I just posted something. I need to see how the market is reacting. But let's be honest about that claim. There's a really sharp difference between actual analysis and dopamine seeking.
Right. If you were truly analyzing performance, how often would you even check?
Maybe once a week. You'd look at aggregate data, the big picture. You certainly wouldn't be checking 3 minutes after you hit publish.
Of course not.
And if you were truly staying connected, you'd schedule times for it. But that's not what happens. We check constantly. I mean, think about the math. Imagine someone with 10 followers checking their notifications 6 times a day.
That image really says it all. You're checking for data that cannot possibly exist yet.
Exactly. Versus someone with 10,000 followers who checks weekly trends. The difference isn't the behavior itself, it's the intent. The person checking 6 times a day isn't doing analysis. They are serving their ego.
And because they call it checking of the metrics, the habit is protected. It's shielded from any kind of scrutiny.
That's the danger of rationalization. If you admitted to yourself, I'm just looking for a hit of dopamine, you might actually feel a little silly and stop. But if you call it work, you can do it forever.
So you have to do an audit of your own behavior. You have to ask, are these habits making me the person who can actually achieve my goal?
Because if you're just checking empty notifications, you're not training yourself to build. You're training yourself to seek validation.
And that search for validation leads us straight into the second form of corruption, which I think is even scarier, the silence failure association.
This is all about what happens in the brain when you put in the effort and get nothing back immediately. So let's walk through that cycle. You spend 3 hours writing something, you publish it, and then, you check immediately.
Of course. You want to see the reaction.
Did you check? Nothing. An hour later, still nothing. Right before bed, you check one last time. One like.
And it's from your mom. And that lack of response, it feels surprisingly physical, doesn't it?
It does. Now, consciously, you might know, okay, my audience is small, this is normal. But your subconscious brain doesn't get algorithm dynamics. It just registers a very simple, very primitive pattern. Effort, check, nothing.
It's just straight up negative reinforcement.
And it creates a neural pathway. If you repeat that enough times, effort, check, silence, the brain learns a lesson. And that lesson is, effort does not lead to results.
Wow. So you are literally teaching your own brain that working hard is pointless.
In a way, yes. You're wiring the work to the pain of silence. The primitive part of your brain can't tell the difference between the audience is too small and the work is bad. It just feels that lack of response is failure.
And I can see how that totally changes your motivation. You stop creating because you have something to say, and you start creating just to make the silence go away. You start creating for likes.
That is the corruption. You shift from clarity to engagement. Now, contrast that with the creator who delays checking, the person who publishes and just doesn't look for a week.
The person who publishes and just walks away.
Exactly. They did the work, they moved on.
Yeah.
The work now exists on its own, independent of the response. So when they eventually do check, any engagement is just a pleasant surprise.
It's not a verdict on whether the last 3 hours of their life were worth anything.
Precisely. The person who checks immediately makes engagement the measure of the work's value. And the damage isn't instant. But after dozens of these empty checks, you start to feel this resistance. The work gets harder to even start.
So the solution isn't to stop caring about feedback, but to break the association. You have to delay the check.
You have to protect your brain from that specific pattern. The work has to be complete in your own mind before you open the loop on external validation.
This connects so well to the third corruption, which is all about misaligned incentives. This is the gap between what we say we want and what we actually do.
Yes. This is where we have to compare stated goals versus actual behaviors. It's so common to hear creators say, I'm playing the long game, or I want to build an audience over time. Noble, long-term goals.
But then you look at their actual habits.
Right. Their actual behavior is checking notifications 10 times a day, feeling that spike of anxiety when the numbers don't move.
It's a complete contradiction. It's like saying you're a long-term investor, but checking your stock portfolio every 5 minutes and panicking. You're not an investor then.
That's a perfect analogy. And the brutal truth is that behaviors always win. Your stated goals don't die in some dramatic fire. They die from this slow corruption. If you say you want long-term compounding, but your daily habit is seeking short-term dopamine, well, you're optimizing for the short term. End of story.
And the checking doesn't even help you build. That's the infuriating part. It doesn't make you write better. It gives you zero strategic insight.
No, it creates a huge alignment problem. I mean, if your goal was just, I want immediate validation right now, then constant checking would be a great strategy. It's perfectly aligned.
But if your goal is building something that lasts,
Then constant checking just trains your brain to value the wrong thing. It teaches you that the short-term hit is more important than the long-term asset. You're basically gaslighting yourself. You say you're a builder, but you act like an addict.
so you're sabotaging your own stated ambitions with these tiny little habits.
And until you fix that alignment, you're just stuck. The fix is to align your behaviors with the timeline of your goal. Long-term goals demand patience. They demand delayed feedback loops.
Which brings us to the fourth point and how stealthy this whole process is, the slow creep.
That's why corruption is a better word than destruction. Destruction is loud. If you stopped writing, you'd notice. You'd say, oh no, I have writer's block. But corruption is quiet. It's comfortable.
Because you're still working. That's the trick, isn't it? You're still publishing, so you think, I'm fine, I'm being productive.
But the quality of your internal experience has completely changed. The work shifts from being done with clarity to being done with this low-grade anxiety. There are symptoms, like checking before the work is even finished. Breaking your own flow just to see if the world has noticed you yet.
Guilty.
Or optimizing sentences for likes instead of for clear communication. You start thinking, how will this sound on the feed? Instead of, is this true?
And that feeling of tightness when you hit publish, even when you know logically this post can't go viral, you still feel that anxiety.
That is the ultimate symptom of a corrupted workflow. And most people avoid facing this because, well, the corruption is comfortable. It gives you those little hits. Facing it requires a truth audit.
I both love and hate this concept, a truth audit. Sounds simple, but painful.
It's designed to sting a little. It's a mirror. You just write down your stated goal. Then you list your actual daily behaviors. And then you ask the hard question, do the behaviors serve the goal?
The cost is 30 minutes and a bruised ego.
That's the price. 30 minutes of honesty, of admitting, okay, I've been lying to myself. I'm not doing market research. I'm just seeking validation. It hurts. But think about the alternative cost.
The alternative is years of wasted time.
Exactly. Months or years of performing for a ghost audience, slowly wondering why the work doesn't feel satisfying anymore. You get stuck with these entrenched habits that are so hard to break.
It really is a fork in the road. You either change the behaviors to match the goal, or and this is interesting, you have to admit the stated goal is a lie.
And that's a valid option. If you do the audit and realize, you know what, I just want attention right now, then fine, at least your behaviors are aligned. But lying to yourself guarantees you get neither the long-term goal nor the short-term satisfaction.
So this isn't about becoming a monk and throwing your phone away.
No, absolutely not. The goal is to recognize the source of the behavior. Are you checking for data? Or are you checking for validation?
It's about catching the corruption before it becomes your default setting. Noticing that flinch when you hit a hard sentence and your hand moves toward the phone.
Right. It's about noticing, hey, I feel the urge to check. That urge isn't strategic. That urge is fear. That urge is ego. And just seeing it for what it is gives you the power to step back.
It defangs the rationalization. You can't tell yourself, I'm working, when you know you're just feeding that silence failure loop.
And when you break that loop, you protect your ability to do the real work. You protect your motivation. You start training your brain to value the effort itself, not the applause.
It's empowering, but it requires that initial moment of pain, that 30 minutes and a bruised ego.
It does. But think about the freedom you get. Imagine publishing something and not even thinking about the metrics for a week. Imagine writing a sentence because it's the right sentence, not the stickiest one. That's what the audit buys you. It buys your focus back.
It's funny, we started this whole thing talking about a 3-second phone check, but it turns out that 3 seconds is a microcosm of your entire approach to your work.
It is. Every time you resist that check or indulge it, you're casting a vote for how your brain is going to operate. You're either building a brain that can sustain long, quiet effort or one that needs a treat every 5 minutes.
And if you build the brain that needs a treat every 5 minutes, you're never going to do the work that actually matters.
Precisely. The work that matters is almost always long, hard, and quiet. And if you've trained yourself to hate the quiet, you trained yourself out of doing the work.
So for everyone listening, the challenge here isn't a new app or a new productivity timer. It's just a piece of paper.
Write down the goal, write down the behaviors, and just look at the gap.
And be willing to take that hit to your ego.
The bruise heals. The time you waste on comfortable corruption, you never get that back.
That's a sobering thought, but a necessary one. It's about regaining agency over our own minds. The phone isn't the enemy is the pattern we've allowed to take hold.
And patterns can be broken, but only if you see them clearly. That's the whole point of this discussion, to strip away the disguise, to stop calling it research and call it what it is, the corruption of the process.
So the next time you sit down to work and that urge hits, that just one check, remember what's actually at stake. It's not about the time, it's about the wiring.
Don't let the wiring win.
The price of clarity is 30 minutes and a bruised ego. The price of skipping it is, well, everything else.